Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders, a safe space for women to thrive in community where their voices and stories are heard. We're a sisterhood supporting each other to live our dreams and embody the sacred feminine to restore balance on our planet. Join us each week as we return to the unconditional love and guidance of our heart and our womb. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I invite you to walk this path of beauty, devotion, and service with us. All right, friends, welcome back to Rising Woman Leaders. This has been a bit of a pause. I have so much I want to share, and I think where I'll start is just thinking back to the beginning of this podcast, which was 11 years ago. It was summer 2015. I had just found out what a podcast was, and I was leading classes on instant teleseminar. So it's before Zoom even. And I thought, wow, I'm already sharing audio. How cool if I could figure out how to get this up on, it was iTunes at the time. I think we call it Apple Podcasts now. And there has been so much growth. So many connections that have been made, the opportunity for me to just get to hear the stories of all these women, but also to connect with the audience and the women that have found this podcast over the years has been so deeply meaningful. So here we are 11 years later, and I'm excited to share that I'm going to be podcasting regularly again. I've been interviewing women on the show, and I'm excited to be sharing more of those episodes coming out. My intention is for it to be every other week, and we'll see how that schedule goes. I'm also going to be sharing a lot more of these solo episodes where I can really be offering like these mini sermons of teachings and life lessons and stories and what I've learned on my path, to be kind of these shorter little snippets, look into my world, and also just to support you on the many challenges that we face being human on this earth at this time. So I really look forward to sharing all of that. Another insight I've been having is when I think back to the beginning of this podcast and what leadership really meant to me then. It was about overcoming fears. It was a lot about helping women come into their voice, partly because that was the journey I was on, and I really needed to gain confidence in stepping into my voice, but also the journey of entrepreneurship and really being with women and understanding the ins and outs of how they came to share their gifts in the world. And for a lot of women, that also came into to be a business. And as I've seen the podcast and myself evolve over the years, I think it's just really interesting to note that the focus for me now, while those are all part of it, is really about faith and spirituality. A lot of my work has now been focusing on the Priestess path. I'll be sharing more about what that is and what that means to me. Our connection to the divine, just seeing ourselves as a soul, that we're here coming to earth at a time where there are a lot of people waking up on the planet right now, a lot of people searching and seeking for support. And I remember at one time early on in the podcast, I think I had the podcast listed in the category of career early on and was interviewing a lot of business owners and things like that. And at some point, I decided to change it to the category of spirituality, because at the core, that's really who I am. And that's really what I'm here for. And what I'm all about is to help people, but especially women, connect with the divine and to remember their innate divinity and to come back to that remembrance and to be a light on the path for others. we all navigate our challenges. And the more that we can just recognize that this was all for a reason. And as we learn and grow, when we do share our stories, that can also be a support to someone else on the path. And that's a big part of the reason that I started this podcast and part of why I'm choosing to continue it. So, the upcoming podcast guests, I'm really excited for. Audrey is going to be coming up as the first one. I'm really interested in stories of initiation, how we are changed, how we grow and evolve on this life path, what leadership can look like in our world, whether that is mothering in a family or sharing our gifts in a community, leading a ceremony, a workshop, or as a business leader in a certain domain. So we're all here to grow and to evolve, and I'm really looking forward to sharing these stories, especially stories of women around, the challenges that made us who we are today, how we navigated those challenges, and how we came out on the other side. So I'll just speak a little bit to the pause. I was podcasting quite regularly up until about 2021. That was when I spent a year in Kauai, and it was technically a little bit harder to be podcasting while I was out there. For a time, I didn't have all my equipment with me, but also there's just so much beauty and so much to be doing outside that I placed it aside for a little while. But then I got pregnant, and my husband and I went through a big journey deciding where we were going to live and have our daughter and start our family. And ultimately, we are now back in Sonoma County, California. We lived in Colorado for a little while, and we had our time in Kauai. But this really is feeling like home. So I'm grateful to be here. But having a child was a big step on the journey. And I saw that once I had a baby, that even though I really wanted to come back to this work, my life force was going elsewhere. And so, literally, with nursing, it was like so much of my creative life force going towards my daughter and my own little rising woman leader that I've been focusing on raising for these last 4 years. And it was an opportunity when I became pregnant to take the pause. I had been writing and podcasting and email marketing and just doing a lot of output for years. I was doing that weekly for years. And so motherhood kind of became this opportunity of like, let's set that down for a little while and really be changed by this initiation, by this threshold, this gateway that I was stepping into. And I was actually surprised once I had my daughter and I had a few months at home full time as a mom. I really saw that I missed this work. But life was taking me in a different direction and needing to really be present with her for some time. And like I mentioned, just so much of my energy was going to that new baby. And then beyond that, it took a little while just to recover from sleep deprivation and all of that initiatory journey. But when she was about 7 months old, I did start going back to my work with the Way of the Priestess and working with clients one-on-one. That became like the one area of life that with my work that I went back to, partly because I had to help pay the bills with the family, but I just deeply love being with women and watching their transformations and supporting their growth. So that's a lot of where I've been focusing for the last 4 years. And now my daughter is 4 years old. She'll be 4.5 soon. And I'm feeling more resourced. I'm feeling creative again. I finally have a little bit more time and capacity to be sharing. So that's why I'm coming back. And yeah, hopefully we'll be sharing in a more regular schedule for you all here. So one of the other things that I've been doing is writing on Substack. Now that I have a little bit of hindsight around that initial transition of becoming a mother, I received the framework of what might become a book. For now, it's just writing on Substack. It's called Made into Mother, Rites and Rituals to Honor the Passageway into Motherhood. And it's really working with the framework of motherhood, the transition from maiden to mother as an initiatory journey. At the end of my pregnancy, I learned about the story of Inanna, and the teacher of our birth class shared the story of this incredible goddess who had everything. She was the queen of heaven. She was called to the underworld to have a deeper perspective, to really know herself, to experience death and rebirth. And she didn't know what would come at the time, but she started to enter into the underworld. And at each gate that she passed, she had to give something up. At first, it was her crown, and then her necklace, and then her scepter and her breastplate. And ultimately, she finds herself naked, and she's killed in the underworld by her Ereshkigal, her other half, her sister. And through the story, eventually she is saved and brought back to life. And she does return to become the Queen of Heaven. But she holds such a deeper perspective, having journeyed to the underworld, having gone through an initiation to then return to her place where she once was. And so the birth teacher told the story, and she didn't say much about it. But as we each had our child and saw, oh, wow, I'm giving up personal time. I'm giving up sleep. I'm giving up this life I had before having a child. Those were walking through the 7 gates. I'm actually working on an article right now called The 7 Gates of Becoming a Mother, and each of those gateways that we pass through and what we lose, identity being one of them as well, perfectionism. It's just such an opportunity for surrender. So, yeah, I wanted to read the introduction to the Substack, the writing of this book. And if you feel called to support it, I would be so, so grateful. I've now published, I think about 15 articles. In total, there are going to be about 30 of them. So it's about halfway done. And I'd love to connect with you there if you're on Substack or want to find my writing. So here's the first chapter. Loss of the Maiden. The ground shakes beneath me. I'm trying to hold on to any last thread, any memory of who I once was. But it's all already dissolved. I've been lost. Everything I once knew gone. There's no going back. As much as I've tried. I searched dark heavens with lanterns for her, but she is no longer there. I am new now, just as my daughter is. I longed for this change. I prayed for this change. It is here. Now I must surrender to the depths, the release of who I once was. Who am I now? With her, without her. She was both my destruction and my becoming. So I wrote that poem in June 2023 when my daughter was 15 months old. There's something that happens when a woman has a child. There's a death of her past self and a period in between, the messy middle, when the caterpillar becomes mush inside the chrysalis before emerging as a butterfly. It's a time where a woman does not yet know who she is, but she can no longer recognize who she was. Some say that matrescence, the transformation a woman's body and psyche undergo in becoming a mother, changes us as profoundly as adolescence. Both are thresholds, marked by dramatic physical, emotional, and psychological shifts. It's a time that some cultures honor with ritual and ceremony, rites of passage. But sadly, in our culture, these rites of passage often go unmarked and unwitnessed. We travel through them alone within our homes, not quite sure who will be on the other side or how we'll get there. We miss the stories of those who have gone through the passage before us. We miss the rites, the honoring, the wisdom we could have gained from our elders along the way. Maybe that's part of the reason why so many women experience postpartum depression, the loss of the circle, the village, the community, the support, and the witnessing. Ruth Barrett describes 5 blood mysteries women may undergo in life: our birth, the first menstrual cycle, giving birth to a child, becoming a mother, menopause, and death. Our culture has lost the art of making these powerful transitions as ritual, a rite of passage when someone is completely changed. So much happens when a woman becomes a mother. Her body is different, her relationship is different, how she views time is completely different. New parents are often left to find their way, figuring out how to meet each other again, how to bond with this tiny new soul, and how to carry so many responsibilities that arrived overnight. And that overwhelm, the deeper spiritual transformation happening inside, is rarely acknowledged. There's just not enough time for it. So I go on to share in this introduction a little bit more about ritual and what it does and how it supports us in these shifting of the psyche and being witnessed and sharing our stories. And really the intention is for us all to have more grounded ways to navigate change, to invite clarity, healing, and meaning in this often chaotic, beautiful unfolding of becoming a mother. And my hope is that other people can become more familiar with the art of ritual and be able to listen to their intuition to create their own and to really honor this time in a woman's life as a rite of passage. So that's a bit about the writing. A few other things that have been developing the last 5 years. One of them is that I've been really inspired lately by the teachings of Yogananda and the Self-Realization Fellowship. Part of that was because I was looking for a spiritual home for my daughter, and I physically wanted a place where we could go to services and have community and shared spiritual practice. So I was checking out churches and was just very open-minded and thinking, where could my daughter go to a Sunday school? I visited an Episcopalian church, which is the faith I was raised in, visited Universalist Christian church and some other different alternative spiritual homes. And ultimately, when I found a place called the Self-Realization Fellowship, it just really resonated for me. So in their lineage, they see Jesus as one of the masters that came to this earth as one who is here to help people awaken, similar to how ancient sages and enlightened, awakened beings from India also came to earth to be of support to others on their path. And what I love about it is that since my daughter turned 3, she's been going to their Sunday school, and she's learning about meditation, and she's learning about things like, one day she said to me, "Mommy, do you know that we have an inner eye?" And she pointed to her third eye. And I was like, wow, where did you learn that? Oh, Sunday school. One time I saw her sitting in her car seat, and she started rubbing her hands together and then placing her hands over her throat and then her heart. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm healing. I'm healing myself." And I said, "Where did you learn that?" And she said, "Sunday school." So that's been a really joyful and surprising, yeah, just connection we've been having in our life. It's really joyful to have a place where I can go be in fellowship with other people who are on the spiritual path. I've also been studying Vedic astrology. My teacher, Richard Powell, he was one of the only men that's ever been on the podcast. And he is a guest teacher every year in the Way of the Priestess program. It's so fun to have him on and just learn from him. So I've been deepening my study and practice of that. And I'm going to be teaching a class in the monthly membership that I host. That'll be happening in July. And um, everything is recorded. So if you're finding this podcast after it's happened, you can actually join the membership and listen to the episode. But it's so wonderful. I'll give you a little example of how Vedic astrology shows up in my life. So Jupiter recently transited from the constellation of Gemini into the constellation of Cancer, where it's exalted. And I'll just mention, if you're not familiar with Vedic astrology, we use a very mathematically astronomical calculations based on what's happening in real time with the sky, rather than Western astrology, which uses a map of the stars from 2000 years ago. Because of the tilt of the earth, there is a slight wobble in the sky. There's a slight wobble that has shifted the sky a fraction of a degree every year for 2000 years. It has landed that the Vedic system is about 24 degrees shifted back from the Western astrology system. And that's true too. If you were to actually just go out and look where the full moon is, a lot of times you'll be hearing everyone talk about, oh, it's full moon in Pisces. But depending on where it's placed, it might actually be, if you look at the stars, it might actually be one sign before, which would be Aquarius. So yeah, it's a really interesting system. And so Jupiter just made its transit for everyone. Jupiter transits to a new constellation about every year, about every 13 months. And it's just spent the last year in Gemini. Now it's in Cancer. And then we can all look on our chart and see, oh, which house is Gemini in and which house is Cancer in. For me, Jupiter, the house of Cancer, is my house of career. It's all about nourishment and helping people be nourished. And so now Jupiter is transiting that house. And it was really interesting. The week it shifted, I was not doing any marketing, not sending emails, not even announcing that the Way of the Priestess was open. And I got 7 new clients in 1 week. It was just crazy how, and I wasn't even surprised by it because I knew. I was like, oh, Jupiter is now in my house of career. Jupiter expands and protects whichever house it's moving through. So just little things like that to be able to understand the influences and how it shows up in our life. So I'll be doing live chart readings with the women who show up to that class in the membership. And I'll be able to tell you, where's Jupiter transiting in your chart? Where's Saturn transiting? And it will be a really fun, interactive class. So the Way of the Priestess is also coming up starting in September. We have a new cohort beginning September 18th. When I think of the priestess energy, I think of, someone who is really showing up to be of service, someone who's opening to receive divine guidance and wisdom, and allowing that energy to move through her to be then shared in the world. But there are times when it's very much about our self-healing journey and just being in the frequency of this love and this self-healing and the sacred feminine essence. And then there are clear times when we feel the tap on the shoulder of, okay, it's time to share my gifts out in the world. And I've worked with all kinds of women in the Way of the Priestess program, some that are very established on their career path. Maybe they're a nurse or a real estate agent or have some other kind of job, and they find ways to bring the priestess energy to everything they're doing. And then I also work with many women who see this as a life path and a calling, and they're very much having their own business and sharing healing modalities and facilitating circles and ceremonies in honor of the Wheel of the Year and rites of passage. And the program is really an opportunity to bring women together. It was about 10 years ago when women started really finding my work, especially my articles related to the priestess archetype. And I could see these women were very deeply connected, very much on a path, and yet they often felt really alone. And so part of creating the program was a way to bring these women together, to have sisterhood, to have community, to feel like they're not alone on their path. And then in the program, we have 2 live Zoom calls a month, plus a module that opens every month with a different goddess guide, an initiation gateway, a different energy that we're working with, everything from reclaiming our voice to how to work with energy and clearing energy to how to work with sacred boundaries or the energy of forgiveness. And we're really evolving and stepping forward on our path until at the end of the program, we have a vow ceremony where each sister writes her vows. I offer guidance on how to write them. And we hold a ceremony where each woman shares her vows. But not only that, all the other women who are journeying with you in that program get to reflect what they see in you and your greatness and your power and your beauty. And sometimes all we need is that reflection, that witnessing and that reflection to really truly believe in ourselves, to believe in our voice, to believe in our power, to have the courage to go out there and to be who we are meant to be in this world. So I've been doing this now for almost a decade and I love it. And if you feel called at all to learn more about that, I'll include the link in the show notes, but it's meredithram.com/priestess. And you can learn all about what the curriculum offers, priestess rituals, the practices, the new and full moon wisdom, the live sisterhood calls that are included as part of this program. And also one-on-one sessions. So there's really it's quite comprehensive and it lasts a full year and a day. So I'd love to connect with you, speak more if you're interested in that. I also recently started doing a one-on-one mentorship that's specific to sisters on the Rose Path. The Rose Path is very intimately connected to Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And I found that there wanted to be a space that was a little bit more advanced for women who've been on this path for a while to receive a really intimate container of one-on-one mentorship. And we use the symbol of the rose as guiding the different modules in that program. So the roots, what nourishes us, where do we receive nourishment? The stalks and the leaves, which sometimes we need to learn about pruning and cutting back and releasing what's not serving. We talk about the thorns, which are the sacred boundaries, the bud, which is the energy of potential and creation and creative life force and fertility, and then the blossoming, which is the sharing of our gifts, the being in the fullness, to blossom without apology, to be in the beauty and the sharing, to be in the world and share our gifts and really share our leadership, as well as the dying away. In order to create space for new life, sometimes we need to let those petals die and fall away. So that's the energy of death and rebirth and Anana, what I was speaking to earlier. And so that program is a lot about Mary Magdalene and support and guidance that she was here and is here to offer all of us. So I'll include a link to that as well. And when I think about if there's anything I could leave you with, I think I would just share that remember that you're here for a reason. Whatever challenges you're navigating right now, they're really here for your growth. And we all came here with a map, which was really our intuition and all the ways that we can listen and tune in and be able to move forward on the template that our soul set out for us in coming into this earth incarnation. I invite you to remember that there's a reason for all of this. It's very mysterious, and we can't prove it, really invites us to step into great trust and great faith. And we can't do it alone. So it helps so much to have guidance and mentorship and other sisters on the path who are navigating this journey with us. So if you're seeking deeper support, know that I'm here. I have different offerings. I am happy to open my calendar and talk to you one-on-one and just offer support and resources on your path. And this podcast is going to be releasing more episodes soon. So may it be a resource for your soul growth, your development, your reconnection with your intuition, your ability to navigate your own journey of transformation, and to remember that there are so many women here doing that with you. So may this serve as a source of nourishment on your path. Blessed be. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. If you liked it, share it with a friend or leave us a review on iTunes. And sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to be sure to receive all the new and inspiring content. Thanks again for being here. It's an honor to walk this path with you.